Hello and welcome to the Fulham Focus podcast. My name's Matt Boisclair and football is back. I hope you've all had a brilliant summer break. Now, who's ready to do it all over again? In the second half of the show, I'll be joined by the heartbeat of Fulham Focus, without whom the show would not be possible. Mr. Lover himself, Don Love. I'll also be joined by our new massive summer signing. Fulham have been linked with Harry Arter for most of the summer, so we've snapped up his namesake Matt Arter, who we will affectionately now know as Matto Statto. But before we bring the boys out to talk all things Barnsley, I caught up with Dannyboi a little while ago for the first in the new regular feature.
Fulham.
So it's a new season, and this is the first in a line of player focus chats we're going to have on Fulham Focus. It's a new feature for the new season. Joining me, Matt Boisclair, is Dannyboi, and we're going to start off with Louis Saha. We're going to try and make these connected to the forthcoming games as much as possible. Louis Saha scored a hat-trick against Barnsley in the 2000-2001 promotion season under Jean Tigana. And also, Louis Saha was very synonymous with a season in the Championship, or the Division 1 as it was called then. So we're just going to have a chat about him. So, hi Danny.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
All good, all good. So, when Louis Saha first signed, what were your thoughts? Had you ever heard of him before?
Well, obviously, I suppose I was about 11 at the time, you naturally focus on the Premier League or the top division as well as your own club because that's what everyone in primary school talks about. So I knew of him from his brief spell at Newcastle. I also knew that he didn't do very well. So someone coming from another division that I didn't know a great deal about, but also being wary that he wasn't that popular at Newcastle. To be honest with you, I wasn't overwhelmed by it at the time. It didn't turn my head in the way that Van der Sar did the following season.
I guess you think about it as well. We just signed, I think Boa Morte had joined on loan, John Collins had signed from Everton, and they were household names at that level as well, weren't they? So Louis Saha, I'll admit, I'd never heard of him at the time. I didn't remember him from Newcastle. We paid a couple of million quid to Metz for a player who had hardly been prolific so far in his career. So it was one of those really, I felt like we were taking a punt at the time. And I remember going to Tiverton in a pre-season friendly, and he looked a class act, but it was against Tiverton. So you can never really judge a new player in pre-season, especially against such lower league opposition. But then, of course, he made his debut against Crewe and scored. Then the next game against Birmingham, scored, and all of a sudden he was a player in form, and he was much talked about in the media.
Yeah, and going back to when he signed, he also was effectively the replacement for Jeff Horsfield, who was very popular with the fans. So it was big signing at the time, big risk, like you said, because we had the ingredients from Keegan, and Tigana was lucky to take over a team like that. There was a lot of experience in there, but it missed that final ingredient up front. And I mean, they couldn't have got it any better with Saha. He was just the all-round perfect player for me. And like you said, he got off to a great start against Crewe. And we ended up going, I think we won the first 11 games in a row.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Yeah, and although it was a team effort that was built from Taylor forward, it seemed like the team was built around Saha. He was just pivotal to everything, every attack. I mean, look at the career he went on to have. He was destined to go on to reach the top, and I think we were very lucky to have him that season.
You're right, and the team was a fantastic team. Like we've mentioned John Collins and Boa Morte, but we also had Barry Hales as well, Lee Clark, and then building from the back, Chris Coleman. And it was total football at its best. It was so good to watch, but knowing that we had Louis Saha up front against some ageing, perhaps overweight Division 1 defenders as they were then, because I guess the times have changed a little bit and players are much more athletic now. But just a little through ball to Louis Saha, and all he had to do was knock it past the defender, and he was light years ahead with his speed, and he was through on goal. And there were so many times when he scored one-on-ones.
Well, you just for younger listeners' sake, just imagine the impact Mitrovic made when he came in that January, and he just blew everything away. He was just superior to every defender that was put in front of him. Then imagine giving Mitrovic the pace of a world-class striker and what damage he could do, and that gives you Louis Saha. And everything that Mitrovic can't do, Saha could. But Saha could also do everything that Mitrovic can do. Words, I don't think, can describe how special he was as a talent. We've had bigger legends because I think from a sentimental point of view, he didn't show Fulham much loyalty. So he won't go down as the all-time greatest, but in terms of talent, he's the best player I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Well, we'll come on to all-time greatest and that sort of thing later on. But how about your favourite memory of Louis Saha from his time at the club? What really stands out for you?
Favourite memory? I think it would have to be Old Trafford. Again, like I go back to my childhood and being that kid in primary school where everybody was an Arsenal fan or a Man United fan. Because I didn't live local to Fulham. I lived the other side of London, so it was quite unheard of and a bit strange to support Fulham. So I used to get a bit of stick, particularly when we was in the lower divisions.
Likewise. I live in Reading. I used to get that as well from all the Manchester United fans that apparently live in Reading.
So I would have been, about 13? 12, 13, when we went out to Old Trafford. You know, I was there with my mum and my sister. And it just, the whole day, I mean, you couldn't have scripted it any better. Fulham get to the Premier League and get drawn at Old Trafford as the first game. I don't think I'd ever quite see the stadium like Old Trafford. It took my breath away when I walked out into it. And then to hit the ground running in the way we did, I never at one point during that game felt that we were outplayed or that we weren't good enough to be playing at that level. And, you know, that's just a million miles away from the team we saw last year, where I felt we don't belong here. We belonged in the Premier League, and Saha belonged on that stage. And, you know, other than a couple of quick goals by Van Nistelrooy to turn the game around, I thought we was outstanding, and none more so than Saha, who got both goals. I mean, the first goal was just unbelievable. You know, the composure to take that touch out of the sky, have the vision to see Bartes running off his line and lob it over him. He made it look so easy. But how many players making their Premier League debut from the Championship could do that at Old Trafford against Manchester United? I don't think there's many. He got a second one,
didn't he, in the second half?
He got a second one. It was a completely different goal, but that just that demonstrated. And both times he was too quick for him. The first time he was too quick playing on the shoulder, and Sean Davis played the ball over the top. The second time, he was in a race with I don't know who the centre-back was. It might have been Jaap Stam. And he was just too fast for him.
Across Bartes into the bottom corner, wasn't it? It was a cracking finish.
Brilliant goal. And that was in front of us, that was.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah, so he obviously had many special moments, but I think that would have to be my favourite moment. Just the whole occasion was just so special.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, my favourite memory is just that first season. And I always think back to that season, and I think back to last season as well, when we were absolutely shockingly bad and got relegated. Not that anybody needs to be reminded of that. But that season in the Championship, we were turning up to matches, just wondering how many we were going to win by, and not whether or not we were going to win. And that was largely down to him, because you knew that we just had this unplayable force up front. And if we were ever up against it, which was rare, then he'd get us out of it.
Well, that front three, Boa, Saha and Hales, I mean, how can you compare it to anything else the Championship's ever seen?
But it was worth 70 goals, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure Boa Morte and Hales both got 20 each and Saha got 30.
Which is just ridiculous.
What a team.
But it wasn't so much just the goals, it was what Saha brought to the team anyway, because, Slav played tippy-tappy football, but Tigana didn't always. They would go long and over the top, and Saha would be that outlet for us to break on the opposition, running the channels with that speed. He was the complete striker.
Yeah. Well, what we wouldn't give for somebody like that this season. All right, we've got Mitrovic, who is going to be worth plenty of goals to us this season. It's fantastic that we've got him, but somebody with the pace as well would be amazing.
That season in Division 1 is the best individual performance over a season I've seen.
Yeah.
In a Fulham shirt.
Yeah. Well, we've talked a lot about the goals that he scored and the amount of goals that he scored and the different types of goals that he scored, but are there any that really stand out as the best goal that Louis Saha scored at Fulham for you?
Well, the goal...
Because there is for me.
The goal against Newcastle. The goal against Newcastle was a good one.
Yeah.
I was just... That first season in the Premier League, I sat right in the corner by the cottage. Mm. So... you didn't get a great angle of most goals that season, but that one, see it curled right into the top corner.
I was stood in the Putney end.
You can't forget that hair either, the blonde hair.
No, exactly. The blonde hair, it did outrageous, didn't it?
Shocking.
Perfect angle from the Putney end as well. I didn't normally stand in the Putney end, but I had some friends with me that day, so I moved my season ticket from the enclosure, which is now the Johnny Haynes stand, and went and stood in the Putney end, and I was stood right kind of towards that side of the goal as well, so you just saw it as soon as it left his foot, and Shea Given just flapping away at it, but it's straight in the top corner. That would be, for me, by far and away, his best goal for Fulham. Is that what you're saying? Are you saying that goal as well, or are you just considering your options?
Well, you have to go on your instinct. So as soon as you said the question, that's the first one that comes to mind. But I do feel that first goal at Old Trafford, the technique, I don't think there's many players that would have scored that.
Yeah.
I don't know, it'd be between the two. He also scored a really good goal against, I think it was Southampton at Loftus Road. It was one of his last goals. The ball coming from the side, and he was just inside the box, central, but he had his back to goal.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
And the ball was going the opposite way. It was going back towards our keeper. It was going away from him. And he somehow got his foot around the ball and volleyed it into the bottom corner. I still don't know how he did it, because the angle was completely against him.
Yeah.
But I think for a Hollywood point of view, I suppose the Newcastle goal.
Yeah, no, completely fair enough. All right, so moving on to a little bit later on in his Fulham career then, I think in that season you were talking about, cool, what would that have been? 03, 04? Yeah. So around Christmas 2003, I think we were fourth. We were fourth at Christmas. But he was being heavily linked with a January move, and then I don't know if he actually refused to play, but there were rumours that he really wanted to move. And I was just thinking that if he had stayed and hadn't gone to Manchester United and come back and scored against us weeks later, if he'd have stayed at Fulham, how would we have done that season? Because I think we end up finishing 9th or 10th or something like that in the end.
We finished 9th, granted, but at the time it was the highest finish ever. And we finished on 52 points. So we only finished a point behind Hodgson's 53. Hodgson's team finished a mile away from 5th. We was only 4 points away from it in 2003, 2004. So it is a massive what if. I don't think you can explain just how much of a void it is when you lose a player like Saha in that form. I mean, if he had stayed, I think we would have finished in the top 6.
Saha is the type of player that could play in an average team. For example, if that Hodgson team played the Coleman team, Saha could win you that game just on his own, just through one moment of brilliance. Whereas the Hodgson team, as we know, very well drilled, and eventually they might break you down and bore you into submission. But if it was delicately poised at 0-0, Saha could just produce that moment of brilliance and win the game for you.
Well, the Coleman team had more match winners in it, and I suppose it's hard to justify it because Hodgson's team, most of them went on to be Europa League finalists, so people will find it hard to look past that. But Tigana's team, I think a lot of people would agree, is the best season they've ever experienced. The football we played, the team we had. And this was kind of an upgrade on that, because we replaced an aging Bjarni Goldbett with Steve Malbronk, who was a sensational player. The legendary Mike Taylor with Van der Sar. And Saha was in the form of his life. So for me, it was the best group of players I've seen play for Fulham. And if Saha had stayed, they would have 100% finished higher than Hodgson's 53 points. 100%. Because there was only a point behind it without him for half the season. And I know McBride was brought in, unbelievable business, but
different type of player though.
Different type of player,
brilliant, but
it's unbelievable business to sell Saha for 12.5 million and bring in McBride for $500,000 to replace him. I mean, unbelievable. But in terms of the quality, it's just completely different. I think it's unfair to judge McBride on that. The form Saha was in, I don't think there was any striker available that could have replaced him. We were destined to go on a decline after that.
At that point in his career, that season, I think Saha walks into any team in the Premier League.
Well, and that's why you can't. I suppose from his point of view, he'd done all he could for Fulham. He did get us promoted, and with hindsight, he didn't really owe us anything, I suppose. We obviously gave him the chance to put him on the map, but at the same time, you could say he put Fulham on the map, because I don't think Fulham would have got promoted without him. So he deserved the move, but I think for me, I look back on his career a little bit bitter, more so for the way he is now he's retired than at the time. He's very much for Man United, and it's rare that he associates himself with Fulham. He did that Twitter video for Wembley, but it's very much Man United this, Man United that, and I think he's a little bit forgetful of how much he means to the fans, and that's a bit of a shame. That's probably my only criticism of him, because as a player, I absolutely loved him. And
that's interesting you say that, actually, because you get a lot of players who come back and come out at half time and wave to the fans and do a quick interview that nobody can ever hear because the speakers are never loud enough. But I seem to remember towards the end of last season we were on Sky or BT or whatever it was, and he was in the studio.
Was he?
He has, so he has been back. But it's interesting. I stand to be corrected, but I don't ever remember him coming back and doing that thing on the pitch. I think it would go down really well if he did do it. That being said, I do remember him coming back with Everton, and Bobby Zamora missed an absolute sitter at the Hammersmith end in injury time. He blasted it over the bar when he'd done all the hard work, and all he had to do was stick it in the corner of the goal. And I just walked out. I thought, we got a draw here. Sod it, I'm going home. It's not going to get any better than that. And then as I was walking up Stevenage Road, I heard a massive cheer from the Putney end, and it turns out Saha had bloody scored, and he went and celebrated it. And, players do celebrate it, and I guess I'm not anti-players celebrating against their former clubs, but having loved that guy so much, that one was quite a hard one to take.
It's a difficult one, because you could turn around and say, well, someone like Breeder Hangland comes back and he's Fulham through and through, and you could say the same about McBride, but they never got to play for Man United.
Yeah.
And Saha wasn't like a player that's forgotten by Man United fans. I think if it weren't for injuries, he would have had a really big impact there. I've heard Wayne Rooney say that he was the best strike partner he's ever had. Yeah. So he was popular at Man United, and I suppose from his point of view, why wouldn't you milk that? So it's easy to come back and say, I'm Fulham through and through, when you haven't had that opportunity on the big stage for a big club. But at the same time, he could never be in the same mould as a Johnny Haynes, because Johnny Haynes sacrificed that. So I mean, for me, he's a legend for what he achieved, but he could never be on the same bracket as the very, very, very top. Maybe.
Do you think that view's shared amongst all of our fan base, especially those who are old enough and who were around at the time? I mean, what I'm really asking is, how do you think he's now regarded by Fulham supporters? Do you think Fulham supporters will look back with nostalgic clouds in their eyes, or do you think they'll just look back and think that's just another player who left us?
Blimey, no. I mean, it was obviously a hard pill to swallow at the time, but a lot of water has gone under that bridge.
Yeah.
Now, and how can you not like him? You go to football to be entertained.
Yeah.
You go to football to see Fulham do well and a team to be proud of. It doesn't mean you want to win all the time, but you want a Louis Saha in your team. You want to say he's our player.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, for his performances and for his ability, he is by far the best player I've ever seen.
Yeah.
By far.
Same for me. All right, so we're going to rate his Fulham career out of 10. What do you reckon? Show your workings.
All right. I think it would have to be 9.5.
Okay.
Probably should be a 10, but there were spells in the Premier League, particularly in the first year and a half, where I don't think he was as prolific as what he was in the Championship and in that last 6 months. I don't think we relied on him. I think the rest of the strikers carried him a little bit. If you look at the stats, I don't think he scored many goals.
Mm.
Plus, the way he left. If you look at the way Steve Finnan left, it was sort of through the back door. It was done, in the way that you'd expect someone like Steve Finnan to leave. It was done very professionally. And he would have got his move in the end anyway. It's a shame that he didn't give us the rest of that season to go on and do something special. But 9.5. I'm only going to knock half a point off for that.
I don't think I can knock half a point off, to be honest. I think in terms, as you say, of sheer value for money, as a supporter paying my money to go through the turnstiles and watch somebody in the Championship, all right, I take your point that the first Premier League season or Premiership season wasn't amazing, but he still showed flashes of what he was capable of. He could head the ball. He'd take penalties with either a right or a left foot. I mean, the keepers just have no chance when a player does that.
We forgot to mention that Zamora's the only player that has done that for Fulham. But the difference is Saha did it in the same game, which I think is ridiculous.
Yeah.
To have the confidence to do that. So
it's unbelievable.
You turned my arm, you twisted it a little bit. I'm gonna go 9.8. 9.8.
9.8.
No, I can't do the 10. I just can't do it. I can't do it.
Well, I'm going with a 10 simply because I can't think of anybody better.
He scored the own goal in the FA Cup semi-final.
He did. Yeah, he did. He did, didn't he?
So.
Well, yeah. I mean, you could pick holes in any player if you really wanted to, but if you we're not a Barcelona. We're never going to have the likes of Messi or a Ronaldo or anybody like that. I think Louis Saha is as close as we're ever going to get, and we won't ever see anybody better playing for Fulham for the amount of time that he stayed for us. What did he stay for? 2.5 seasons. If a player like Louis Saha signed for Fulham and had the season that he had with us that first season, he'd be gone. He'd be gone the next summer because of the market in this day and age.
That Coleman team had a world-class goalkeeper in Van der Sar and a world-class striker in Saha. 2 world-class players in the same team.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right.
So I don't think that's exaggerating. I think Saha was world class. I think he could have played for anybody.
Definitely.
Could have played for anyone.
Definitely. What was that stat you texted me earlier about the rankings as well?
Obviously, because of the focus stuff we do, I've done my research and I've got a list of the all-time rankings for appearances and goals for like the top 100 or whatever, and including pre-war, it's a bit iffy with league appearances and stuff. But including that, going all the way back in our history, Saha is 15th for most goals in a Fulham shirt. And he is second behind Jimmy Conway for the most goals by an overseas player. But that's assuming Wales and Scotland counts as your homegrown countries.
Yeah, I mean, it does.
Yeah, so Jimmy Conway's top for overseas players and Saha's second. And Jimmy Conway was Irish, so really, I think that's a big achievement for Saha to be up there that high, and I think that just demonstrates just how prolific he was.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And if those who weren't around at the time to see him, whether you weren't born or whether you weren't supporting the club, then you really did miss out. And you should look him up on YouTube or something.
It just shows you what an impact he had.
What might have been if he'd stayed.
Absolutely. Don't go there. Not again. What?
Good. All right, well, let's leave it there then. I'll see you guys all up at Barnsley on Saturday.
Yeah.
And we'll be back next week and we'll be talking about somebody else. So, cheers, everyone.
Yeah, always a pleasure to speak to you, mate. Thanks a lot. See you later.
Fulham.
Great as always to chat to Danny, who always does his research when it comes to stats and the like. And on that note, Matto Statto, welcome aboard, my man. How's your summer been?
Hello. It's good to be here. Thanks. Summer's been okay. It's probably been on par with Fulham's transfer activity. Nothing good, nothing bad. Quite average, but no, it's good to be here.
Good to have you on board, mate. Good stuff. Okay, and of course, the one and only Don Love. How are you, man? How have your holidays been?
It's been really good. I've been busy down at the beach, so I can't complain. I was down there for 3 weeks.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like everybody's nice and relaxed. So let's all get prepared to be nice and pissed off by Fulham again, eh? Let's do it.
Inject it into my veins.
All right, so we'll come on to Saturday's game with Barnsley in a little while. But first of all, let's have a look at the squad. So we lost Sergio Rico at the end of last season. He went back to Spain, and Betts is back. So happy with that? But I'll come to you first, Matt. How do you feel about Betts being back in goal?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. I think 2 years ago when we got promoted, he proved himself as a decent championship goalkeeper. He looks like he's injury-free now, which is obviously a good thing. And I think he's probably looking to make a statement for himself. You know, he was dropped last year in the Premier League, and I think he would want to kind of make his claim to be Fulham's number one this year. Yeah,
that's a fair point. Of course, he got injured as well, didn't he, last season? Not that I think he would have been back in goal anyway. For some reason, Sergio Rico seemed to be quite a popular choice amongst all of our managers, but I was never a fan. But of course, we've still got Fabry and we've got Rodak. Don, who's the number one this season for you?
It's Betts. Come on.
Yeah.
You know, I've always liked Betts, and if you guys have listened to me in the past, you know I'm a big fan of his. I think he's, a great stopper, and he always commands his box. He's very vocal, and that's what I want in a goalie, is somebody who sits back there and commands and, lets everybody know what the field is and what he needs. I didn't feel like we always had that last season. We all know that was part of a language barrier, but it's back, so I'm happy. I will totally go in this level of competition. I will go with Betts all day long.
Oh, fair enough. Part of me was hoping that we might sign somebody new, but we know we can rely on Betts. We got promoted with him before.
Why? We've got a great up-and-comer.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. I think I was just going along the lines of it would be good to make a fresh start, but he's a good player, and we've also got Rodak, who was very popular at Rotherham last season, and I don't think Fabry got a fair crack of the whip last season either. He was blamed at the start of the season when we lost at home to Palace, and then we lost. That was unfair. Well, with hindsight, it was, but nobody actually realised how crap we were in front of him. I think people just assumed that it was all his fault. But then when he was out of the team and two other goalkeepers came in instead of him, then it was still the same old problem. So, but I can't see that he's going to be happy sitting on the bench, or not even on the bench for that matter. So we may see him go before the transfer deadline next week anyway.
I wouldn't be surprised this time next week, to be honest. I mean, if he is, it's great. He's the goalkeeper. I'm sure he'll probably be quite decent in the Championship.
Well, he's a Champions League keeper, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And, like I said, didn't we have a fair chance last year? Lots of weird things happened with goalkeepers last year. And, I think if he stays, then, it's good. If he doesn't, then, it's no big deal. We have Betts and Rodak. And I think Rodak could challenge Betts this year. He had a great year with Rotherham, and I think, Betts is he does make the odd mistake every now and then, and
all goalkeepers do, though.
All goalkeepers do, but with Betts, it kind of happier than what you'd like. So I think if a few Rodak could come sniffing, and he could displace Betts potentially.
Well, we were looking at the squad list today because the squad numbers were released, and we've got Bettinelli, we've got Rodak. I'm just looking through now. We've got Fabry, we've got Magnus Norman, and we've got Luca Ashby-Hammond, all with squad numbers. That's 5 goalkeepers. So.
That doesn't mean much. Better. I mean, I wouldn't expect Norman or Ashby-Hammond to get a game unless freak injuries occurred. But no, I think in terms of the goalkeeper department, we're more than ready. We have a very solid goalkeeper department for the Championship, I think.
Okay, I think we've established that Betts is probably going to be our number one this season. So let's have a look elsewhere in the team. Unfortunately, and I do mean unfortunately, we lost Anguissa last week. He went out on loan to, was it Villarreal he went to last Friday night?
Yeah, quite a good team, to be fair. But I think it's quite a big loss for us. And I know he wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but I think he really could have been a decent player for us in the Championship.
I still maintain he would have been the best midfielder in the Championship if he'd stayed. But he was man of the match in a lot of our games in the new year. Once he got his feet under the table and was in the team, he started to play really well, and I think he would have looked excellent in the Championship. So I'm a bit disappointed that he's gone. What do you think, Dom?
Well, it's like, you guys were saying, he wasn't everybody's cup of tea, and he got a lot of stick last year for a lot of different things. But he was young, exciting, Yeah, he didn't always want to come back on defense. That really kind of bothered me, especially it was hard to play him, I thought, along Tom sometimes, because Tom doesn't always, come back on that defense. Or, it doesn't allow Tom to have more freedom to be creative. So I don't know. Do you think there was like a problem in the squad? Like, was he a disruption?
I don't think it was that. I think it was more of the case that, a La Liga team like Villarreal, who are always up there with the Champions League and Europa League, they came calling and they put in an offer, and I'm sure it looked attractive to Anguissa, and it was probably attractive to Tony Khan at Fulham. I don't think there was any.
So you think it was a perfect match? Maybe get some of the wages off the books.
I don't think it was a perfect match. I think that, in an ideal world, we would have wanted to keep him. But I think, if an offer like that comes calling and, a player like Anguissa, I think he'd rather want to play in the top league of Spain rather than the second division of England.
I think that's exactly right. I feel like Anguissa said, I don't want to play in the Championship. Find me another club. Same with Seri. I feel like that's exactly what's happened.
Well, Seri, I totally understand that. I mean, He didn't want to be here, it seemed like, hardly ever. I mean, his performance on the field was lackluster so many times.
He said he never even heard of us when he joined last summer. What a thing to say about a new club. Sorry.
Are you serious?
He did. I heard him. Yeah. He kind of made a joke about it. Said, I've never heard of him.
That's not even cool. I got nothing else to say about him then. Yep,
he's gone. They've both gone. All right, so we don't have either of them. What we do have is Cyrus Christie, Dennis Adoy, Stephen Sessegnon, Marlon Fossey. Who's going to play right back this season? Don.
Ooh. I really would like to see the youngster start. I just don't know that it'll happen. I think when I say youngster, I'm talking Fossey, because I just think there's better competition there. If you looked at the last game, Adoy did not do that bad. I know I'm not his biggest fan, and I give him stick in the past. I didn't think he did that bad. So I could kind of see him sitting there up until Mawson's injury. So I don't know what's going to happen now.
I think it kind of has to be Stephen Sessegnon's breakthrough year. Obviously, both the Sessegnons are 19, so they're still quite relatively young in terms of a football career. But, given how far Ryan's excelled in the last few years, I think it's really Stephen's turn to step up and, take his place as our main right back.
I can see that. If he hadn't had his injury, I think last year would have been it. I really do.
Well, I think it's quite clear we still haven't got a squad number two. We didn't have one last season either. We haven't had a number two since Ryan Fredericks left. Dennis Adoy can play right back, and I think he's an okay right back. I think Cyrus Christie is probably the front runner to start. I know he's not a lot of people's cup of tea after what was a fairly poor season in the Premier League, but in the Championship, it's a different kettle of fish. You get away with more mistakes. And when in the second half of the season when we were promoted, I thought he looked pretty good. He came off the bench quite a lot when Ryan Fredericks was tiring, and he set up a couple of goals for Mitrovic. He got forward, and I can see him. I can see him being the first choice to start with. But
he's got good speed. He
definitely has. He definitely has. I just wonder whether we'll bring somebody else in before next week's transfer deadline day.
I mean,
okay,
being a football perfectionist, the number 2 shirt should be a right back, because that's just an unwritten law of football. But I don't think we'll need to sign another right back, and I don't think we'll get another one coming in. Not to say the number 2 shirt will be unoccupied. I think it will get occupied by someone, but I just don't think it will be a right back.
Okay, interesting. Well, that just reminds me of when Clint Dempsey went to Spurs. I think he wore the number 2 shirt at Spurs, didn't he?
He did.
He always does.
Which is football heresy.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so that's the right side. What about the left side? Sess is still here. Will he go?
It's it's probably the big if of the summer, isn't it? Will he or won't he? And if he doesn't go, what does that mean financially for us? Like, does he sign a contract extension? If he doesn't, do we just lose him on a free next year?
But where does he fit in the team? If he's still here, where does he play?
That's the question. If he does stay, what does he guarantee? You know, you start all the time, or we're going to rotate you. He's not going to want to rotate with these other guys. Are you going to put him back at left back? Well, you know, Brian's there, and I think that's well covered. So,
and I prefer Joe Bryan at left back over Sessegnon, to be honest.
Yeah,
I agree.
He's a proper left back, Joe Bryan. See, for me, I just feel like I can completely understand why Sess would want to leave. If Spurs are sniffing around him, he must be thinking, I might not get this chance again if I don't go now. I might get injured this season in the Championship. Anything could happen. But if he does go, I can't see him playing regularly for any team in the Premier League. He didn't play regularly for us, and when he did get in the team, he wasn't that good. So for me, I think he should sign a year extension, get his stock back up and play in the Championship with us, have another good season with us, and then see where he is next season. I think it could potentially be career suicide for him, because I don't think he's good enough to be playing in a team like Spurs on a regular basis.
I completely agree with that. I mean, for his development, it would be best if he stays with us for another year. But, you know, on the flip side, you can't blame him for wanting to leave to go to a bigger Premier League club. It's a tough one.
It is.
All I would say is, and hopefully this will close the door on that situation. If he leaves, you hope that he goes somewhere where they will really look at him and keep developing him as a young player, and not just say throw him to the wolves and then he falls apart and his career goes sideways. You know, this is where, if he did stay, I think Scotty's a good man for that, having, you know, PL2 experience and U18 experience. Scotty, I think, would really help develop him. So if he leaves, best of luck. You were, you know, a good tradesman, a good steward for the club, and wish you all the best. But I hope you land with somebody like Scotty.
One other thing then. So the only other thing I can think of here is, what if he signed for Spurs and then they loaned him back? How would you feel about that, Matt?
Yeah, that'd be quite a good agreement, I think. If he went to Spurs, I'd have no hard feelings. And, you know, I think it would be in both clubs' interests. Like, they get the player, we get the transfer fee, and at the same time, we get another season of Cess, and he gets another year to develop. So I think, you know, all around that would be a good deal. But then that would go back to, if that does happen, where would he fit into the team?
That's the ultimate question. Now, the only thing that really would put the icing on the cake, if that were to happen, is that would give Ryan a good chance to play with Steven, you know, in a year of football. So that could be a win-win.
Okay. All right. So I went to the West Ham friendly at the Cottage on Saturday. It was very bizarre, sitting in the Hammersmith end, looking at a Riverside stand full of empty seats. It was like a real throwback to the 90s when there were all sorts of seats missing and the ground looked very derelict back in those days.
Hey, so real quick there, Matt, will you describe what it looks like right now? Because, you know, for us overseas fans, I'm curious, have they built a wall so you can't see the construction going on?
No. So there is a temporary structure, scaffolding structure that sits over the dugout. So the dugouts are still there. And that's the gantry where all the cameras are. So for anybody watching our games on TV this season or watching highlights, I think the vantage point is going to be slightly lower from where the cameras are, and they're very much on top of the pitch. And then everything's still there. It's just a stand without any seats in it. And I assume the director's box has moved over maybe to the Johnny Haynes stand. I'm not sure where that's gone. I was trying to work it out on Saturday, but I couldn't.
Well, I thought he being Tony Khan just moved that to the Cottage.
Possibly, yeah. I'm not sure. I don't think there was anybody sat in the Cottage on Saturday, that's for sure. But the ground was particularly empty, as you'd expect for a pre-season friendly against a team that we didn't play very long ago. So so the Riverside stand looks weird. And to the game on Saturday, Stefan Johansson limped off. He was limping about for quite a while and eventually got taken off. But we were talking a couple of weeks ago, Don, weren't we, on our WhatsApp group, and we were talking about whether or not Steph Joe is going to be back in the team. I guess at the time we still had Anguissa. I should imagine now Steph Joe is a nailed-on starter for this team, right?
Oh, he's definitely a nailed-on starter for, at least for me. We always give him a little bit of stick for being that guy who can get a quick card. He's that cheeky little guy who'll come in hard and do stuff. And I think, sadly, watching the highlights from the game and watching the game, that's what happened to him. He got a hard challenge, so he's probably got a good knock there. Hopefully that does not hurt him at all for the season. But I miss him. I miss his antics. I miss his craziness. I miss him. He's a good, fun person to watch.
I would completely agree with that. He's just one of those great footballers that you just play. Opposition hates him. We love him. Technically, he's not the best, but he always puts 100% in. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing the three amigos back in midfield again. To be honest.
Now you say three amigos. I assume you're referring to K-Mac.
Of course.
That to me is kind of a question. I love K-Mac. I love his presence on the field. He is obviously kind of our true captain on the pitch, but it is a year later. He didn't play a whole lot with us last year. He's really slow in turning. He's really slow in turning. So
it's only a year afterwards. Though. It's only a year after he was promoted with us. Maybe he wasn't good enough in the Premier League. I think he's good enough to play a lot of games this season, but my only concern is that we don't have any backup for him. And when he does get injured or suspended, then who comes in for him? We don't have another defensive midfielder.
That is the problem with our system, okay? We like to play a 4-3-3, and you want your outside backs to be more like wings that are constantly going up and down. Well, if they're going to be able to do that, they need that strong midfielder, holding midfielder that helps to break up play or distribute the ball or, do things. And if K-Mac gets hurt, who is that guy right now that's going to drop in there and make that happen? And that's the big question.
Dare I say this, but we do still have Ibrahim Cisse on our books, and he was given a squad number today. Now, he's kind of vanished. He's a bit of a myth, to be honest, but he did play in the Premier League last year, and he wasn't terrible.
But he's not that big, strong guy to me. I'm looking for that big, strong guy who can almost play a center back. You know what I mean? Who can help bring things up. So for me, that's kind of one of the spots. Well, there are several, that we always look at and say, God, who's going to be the strength or the second person, second string for that spot? That is one spot that I am a little worried about. Is we need that strong kind of holding guy in case K-Mac gets hurt. I think if you get Johansson hurt, Cess or different, or not Cess, but Ibrahim or different ones could fill that spot. But I don't know about that K-Mac spot.
Yeah, it's quite clear we're going to need to bring somebody in. Well, moving on, speaking of injuries, one man who has suffered a lot with injuries since he signed for the club is Alfie Mawson. It seems like he's only ever one undone shoelace away from the stretcher. So do we have to bring in another centre back, or do you think?
Oh, we have to
cover there.
Oh yeah. Even before Mawson got injured, a centre back was high. Was a high priority to bring in before the transfer window, and now he has got injured. I would even say two centre backs maybe we need to get in.
Well, we've still got Maxime Le Marchand.
True.
And we've got Dennis, who, all right, he's not everybody's favourite again, but we know he can play centre-back and he can do it effectively. But do we have anybody else? I mean, Callum Chambers we had last season's gone back, so that's another one. So, yeah, I think you may be right. I think we probably need a couple of centre-halves.
We have to get a right centre-back, and here's why we have to have a right centre-back, okay? Unless you're going to say Tim or...
Of course, we got Tim Ream. Of course, we've got Tim Ream. I was going to say,
so unless you say Tim or Le Marchand is going to slide to the right, and the reason I say that is because if Mawson's out, really the only other right center back is Dannyboi. Okay, Well, that means Christie's got to drop in there, or Steven has got to drop in there. Well, if Mawson has got a knock already, Odoi gets hurt. That doesn't really leave a lot of cover for that particular position. Okay, on the left, I'm not so worried because you've got Tim, you've got Limachon, and if he had to, you could easily drop Joe into the center, on the left hand side. So. Or for that matter, even McDonald could drop back there. I'm worried about that right center back. And as everybody has said, a big, strong guy, somebody who's going to dominate, especially in the air.
Yeah, absolutely fair enough. So, all right. So we said we need another defensive midfielder. We said we need a couple more centre-backs. What else do we need? How many more signings would you like to see us make between now and, is it next Thursday, the transfer deadline day? How many more do you think we need?
I don't know what Statto Matto says, but my only other position I would kind of worry about is Mitro.
I think we're fine with Mitro, to be honest.
Well, I just mean if he gets hurt, God forbid, I'm knocking on wood here.
Yeah. Rui Font, in he comes.
Rui Fonte.
You think
man,
that's
the
the
myth,
cover?
the legend.
Well, AK-47 can also play up top if needed. And we have got that new young lad, Taylor Crossdale, come in. He's only 19.
That's true. That's true.
I think in terms of attacking options, I mean, even Aite could play up top if needed. I think we got more than enough attacking cover. We don't have the traditional striker that Mitro is as a cover, but like I said, touchwood, hopefully he doesn't get a serious injury and hopefully, that won't be needed.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like we may need some more cover in midfield because who have we got if Johansson gets injured? Who have we got if Kearney gets injured?
Yeah.
We've got nobody.
Yeah.
We're so threadbare in that area. So I think we probably need another 5 or 6 signings, to be honest. But it's a shame that we haven't managed to make them before, or whilst we're still playing our pre-season games, because we're in a similar position now to the one we were in last year, where we're right at the start of the season and we're looking to pad our squad out. I think Harry Arter's been linked. Michael Hector's been heavily linked, the Chelsea centre half all summer. But I just hope that there isn't a mass panic on the last day, as there was last season, because as we know, that led to bloody disaster.
Well, we just don't want a bunch of loans all of a sudden.
Yeah, we don't. I hope Tony Khan's learned his lesson. I hope he's learned his lesson in that respect.
We're going to get some loans because it's the Championship and it's inevitable, and Tony Khan loves a loan deal.
We've already got 2. Knockaert and Cavallero are both loans.
But aren't they loans with a view to a permanent?
Well, they are, yeah, but they're still loans.
But I think that's a big difference.
Loans.
That's a big difference from what he did last time. Last time we had all these loans with no options to buy. So the minute we got promoted, often the win they win. So that is a big difference. And Matt Statto is right. Excuse me. Tony Khan does love his last minute deals. And he said that in his interview that everybody probably listened to on a different pod. At any rate, he did mention that he is not going to spend money, the ridiculous money, and that he is all about, making sure that the right player comes in for the right fees. That's all good and said, but we really would have wished they'd have been done by now and the team would have had more time to gel as a whole. And that's the one thing that bugs me is we don't have everybody in and they don't have all kinds of time to gel right before getting into the games.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of, in that interview, Tony Khan talks about lessons learned from the previous year. And, you would have thought one of the major lessons learned is, to get the business done early, to give the time to gel, give them a bit of a pre-season rather than just chucking them in at the start of the year. And it feels like it hasn't in that aspect. He's more, he's very much a financial man. And, he said that by waiting to the end, you get the better deals. And I think that's one thing he hasn't quite learned on.
Yeah, okay. Let's move on to this weekend's game then. We know we're probably going to be bringing in some signings at some point. Hopefully they'll be before this weekend. Sooner the better. I've got some juicy stats, Matto Statto, that you very kindly prepared about the Barnsley game. So Fulham and Barnsley have met 80 times in the past. We've won 26 of those games. Lost 31, but we have won 5 out of the last 8, which is encouraging. Interestingly, last season, I didn't really pay that much attention to League One last season. Barnsley were obviously promoted. Barnsley were unbeaten at home last season, and they won 65% of their games. And in the process, they kept 10 clean sheets. However, they have lost their first 3 choice centre-backs and their goalkeeper. So they'll have a completely new look back line. So surely we need to be encouraging Knockaert and Cavallero to run at their fullbacks and get balls into the box for Mitro to get all over those new centre-backs, right?
100%. The new signings they have got, the 3 centre-backs they've brought in are all young at 21 years of age, and none of them have championship experience. They've bought a few new goalkeepers, and whatever team they put out on Saturday, they're going to have a completely new centre-back pairing. So, Mitrovic, he needs to bully. He needs to bully them and literally just take control in that aspect. And I think he could do. I think he will do even.
That's also kind of a game that would scream out. Then you bring on AK at some point, and you love him or hate him. He's got good speed. He's physical, and he will go right at him. So that's the kind of game. If they're brand new and young blood, fresh blood in the water, you put in an AK-47 and let them just tear them apart.
Just don't let him get in front of goal and have a shot. That's the only problem with him. So we're going to be coming up against Cauley Woodrow, a player that came up through the ranks at Fulham and never really made it. He played a few games in the Championship and scored in the Premier League for us once, I think. But now he pinged the goals in last season. I'm just trying to find, I think you told me how many goals he scored last season somewhere.
He got 16 goals last year.
Yeah, 16 goals in a promotion season at League One level. Pretty good. 16 in 31. Everybody seems quite obsessive about him on our WhatsApp group. Everybody's convinced he's going to score against us this weekend. What are your thoughts? Are you worried about Cauley Woodrow? I know I'm not, but then I'm normally wrong.
Well, for a start, we're going to have an awful defence, and we probably will concede, let's be honest. And it may or may not be Woodrow. Obviously, the whole going back to your ex-club curse is the major factor there. I think League One was kind of his level. Touch wood, I don't want to jinx Fulham there by saying that. So, I can expect Barnsley to score, but I don't think it's going to be him.
I think looking at their form last season, you said here that Fulham are most likely to concede early on based on when Barnsley were scoring their goals last season.
Yeah.
Well, that's just a Fulham thing. I feel like we always start slow and just, haven't woken up. It's like when I'm coaching my U13 girls, they're asleep for the first 10 minutes, all talking to themselves. So I don't know if if Woodrow is going to be that guy who has found his level, at level one, that I could see him doing okay in the Championship. He's got a good size to him, and he I think at least plays pretty well with his back to goal, a lot like Mitro. So I could see him doing okay. I don't think he's going to set it on fire, but I've always liked the guy. Don't ask me why, but I've always liked him. I think he could do okay. Now, with that said, obviously not on Saturday.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So Adam Davis, the Barnsley goalkeeper, kept 19 clean sheets last season, but he's been sold to Stoke. And they've signed 2 new goalkeepers, one from the Austrian League and one from Chelsea's academy. So there's not much Championship or English game experience in between the sticks. So Mitro's nailed on to score. He's got to score. I think he'll score a couple this weekend.
As long as we're getting balls in the box and giving him the opportunities, Mitro, I think, is 15, 16 goals easily. He's got to be up there for Golden Boot. And I think, with Ivan playing in different ones, I think he'll see the ball more than he did last year. So I'm really looking forward to the front. It's, obviously the back that we got to worry about.
I think whatever happens on the weekend, due to Barnsley having pretty much new defence and our defence just being awful, it's just going to be a high-scoring game, isn't it?
Well,
okay. So, with that in mind,
I read somewhere somebody predicted 8v8.
8-8. That would be quite the turn up for the books on the opening day of the season, wouldn't it? One for the entertainment value, anyway. So, all right. So, I presume you're not saying it's going to be 8-8. Dom, what do you think the score's going to be this weekend? What do you think the score's going to be?
I'm going to go 2-1 to us. 2-1 to us.
And
Yep.
who's going to score?
I sadly think there's going to be one goal. Oh, I definitely think, for me, I think it's going to be Tom, and I think it's going to be Mitro. He's going to get his, opening goal, and it's going to be the start of the season for him. So, and then Tom has kind of come back in some of those pre-opening games. If you notice, Tom was back to himself with that left foot out of midfield, picking up a nice ball, out into the top 90. So I feel Tom's coming back too.
Yeah, he scored a couple against Brighton in pre-season at Aldershot, didn't he? So let's hope so. And of course, who's going to get the Barnsley one? Corley Woodrow?
No, it'll be an accident on Tim Ream or Adoy.
in off Adoy's arse. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
What do you think, Statto?
I think we'll probably go 1-0 down early on, because we need to remember that Barnsley have just been promoted. They've still got that, excitement of being promoted, and that will carry them over for the first 10, 15 minutes. So we'll go 1-0 down, but I think we'll pull through and win 4-1 is my guess.
4-1, yeah. I think we'll win quite heavily as well. I'm going to say 3-0. So
you think we're going to keep a clean sheet?
Yeah, why not? Let's be positive. Let's start positively, and then we can be miserable fuckers when things start to go wrong. Good day. All right, so that's the Barnsley game. Let's think about the Championship as a whole then. Who do you think is going up this season? You can pick 3 teams. Who do you think is going up, Don?
3 teams that are going up. Okay. Us. I don't know why. Leeds worries me. They've got this that new backing. They got sold to a conglomerate, so I could see them. And who's always up there? Derby.
Yeah, Derby. You've got Philip Cocu, haven't they? Middlesbrough are normally there or thereabouts. Cardiff still got Warnock. Still got a similar team to the one they came down with.
West Brom, they've got Slaven Village in now. They'll be up there.
Stoke. I think it's a tough league.
Maybe. I think Bristol City could be dark horses once again. I know the last few years they kind of dropped off towards the end, but I think they could surprise a few this year again.
I've heard a lot of people say QPR could be the dark horse this year.
Don't say that.
I know. But apparently they've got some decent signings. So
I think Brentford as well. Brentford are rumoured to have a really good team. I don't know a great deal about them personally, but I don't want to say it, but if they were to go up, then they'd be in the Premier League to move into their new stadium, wouldn't they? Which would be great for them, but not so good for us. But
all right. It's the beauty of this competition is you just don't know. This isn't the Premier League. You're not going to have your guaranteed top 7 and your pretty much guaranteed top or bottom 4. It's a tough league, and that is the beauty of this league. There's too many unknowns, and there's so many games. Oh my Lord, the amount of games they play.
Yeah, I would agree.
I'm going to make a call and say that I think Reading will be relegated this year. All the noises that I'm hearing from, because I live in Reading, so everybody that I've spoken to who watches Reading are quite worried this season. They've not signed many players, and
haven't they signed Charlie Adam?
Yeah, they did sign Charlie Adam. Yeah, but that would have been great. That would have been great 10 years ago.
Yeah, but now feels a bit Jamie O'Hara-ish.
Very much. Yeah, I think they're going to struggle, and they struggled last season. So. But yeah, so all right, we'll see how that pans out. Hopefully, though, we'll be concentrating on the top end of the table and looking at promotion again. That would be great.
I think arguably we have the best attack in the league. I mean, with Cavallero,
I don't even think it's an argument. I don't think it's an argument. We have got the best attack in the league.
The issue comes from the only issue comes from the midfield and the defence. That still needs a bit of work.
That is a worry, yeah.
Yeah.
That could be a concern, but hopefully we'll pad that out and things will end up okay.
We can only hope.
Yeah, quite. All right, well, I think that's just about everything, guys. Anybody got anything to add? Any other business, Matt, from you on your debut?
Not yet, but I'm hoping. You put me right on the spot there, but I just hope to be included in a few more pods over this next year. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's been good to have you on. What about
we
you,
definitely
Don?
got you in the rotation. We are definitely in the rotation. I really don't have much more to say. That we've covered pretty much everything that we can say. I just want to make sure that everybody has their full support behind Scotty. I know it's his, debut basically, and he's an unknown or an unproven manager, but I think he's going to do well. And I think he's actually going to do some great things, hopefully with us, and not move on to be great with some other club. So wishing Scotty all the best.
Good stuff.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think we all echo that. Okay, gents. Well, thanks ever so much for that. It's been good to have you on. It's been good to be back. Thanks to everybody for listening. We'll be back again same time next week. You can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter and on all the usual social media platforms. And as I say, we'll be back next week.
Fulham.